Why does everybody flock to California? Why does everyone consider San Francisco the glamour city of the continent? I'm George Pierrot, host of the World Adventure Series. My guest is Stan Midgley, and Stan is right here to answer these questions and a whole lot of other ones. And now here's our guest, Stan Midgley. Stan, you studied chemistry at Princeton. How did you happen to switch to this color camera business?
Well, George, while I was a chemist, photography was my hobby. That's nothing unusual. Half the chemists I knew were photographers on the side. And while I was a chemist, I kept track of everything that was good about my job. And for 8 years, I came up with 8 good things. They were the 8 vacations. So I thought I'd have to do something about that, and I quit the job as a chemist. I moved to California, and for the last 20 years, I haven't had a vacation, but nobody has any sympathy.
Well, Stan, you obviously made the right decision because you won that $1,000 nationwide contest for superior photography in the travel field. Now let's go to California with Stan Midgley and let him show us why it's everybody's favorite vacation state.
Well, California has everything. I live there, so naturally I make a kind of a noise like a Texan does when he's talking about his state, because we Californians always brag it up. We have just about everything, depending a little bit on how you measure it. We have the biggest, the smallest, the cheapest, the most expensive, the best, the worst of everything. From the ocean to the mountains, the high Sierra, our peaks are running 14,000 feet high. If you get back in the back country, you get fabulous trout fishing. These are rainbow trout that these men had caught at Hungry Packer Lake. I like that name. I do a lot of hiking in the mountains, following the, oh, watch where you're going. Oh boy, say, I didn't notice, but did that tree have a lump on it before I walked into it? Poor old tree. But you're following the John Muir Trail through the back country of Kings Canyon National Park. You look out over some of the roughest country in America with nobody in sight anywhere you look, and yet you're in the same state with one of the finest cities in the world. San Francisco is everybody's second favorite city, if it isn't your favorite. You're looking at it from the top of the Mark Hopkins Hotel. Every tourist that goes to California probably goes up here to take pictures out over San Francisco Bay and this beautiful city.
We'll see San Francisco in close-up right after this short message. You know, Stan, San Francisco is a favorite city of mine, too. The old Palace Hotel, which is so graceful and so dignified and so much a part of history, and the Embarcadero, where all the ships come in, and Fisherman's Wharf, where you get Dungeness crabs and every kind of fish unloaded that very morning. Tell us more yourself about San Francisco.
Well, of course, I look at it from the viewpoint of a photographer. It's a big city that has just about everything, but it's in such a beautiful location. There's no city in America is in such a fine setting as the San Francisco Bay Area. And also it's in the middle of Northern California, so you can get anywhere you want to go easily. And there are so many things to do around there.
You're certainly right, Stan. And now let's start our close-up panoramic view of San Francisco.
The view from the Twin Peaks, looking right down Market Street towards the Bay Bridge. Over the other side of the bay is Oakland. I think anybody recognizes a picture of San Francisco as soon as he sees it. No other town in America looks anything like it. It's so white in appearance, for one thing. There are very few trees in town, and nearly everybody paints his house white or pastel colors. You have nearly 1 million people jammed into this little peninsula, so the only direction the city can grow is straight up. About 1880, they invented the cable car in San Francisco. That was the only way they could think of getting up these hills. And even today, right in the busiest part of San Francisco at Powell and Market Street, they turn the cable cars around by hand on this little turntable. Then they push it off by hand. I noticed he had a hand left over there, but already they'll have 40 or 50 people on the cable car. Passers-by lend a hand at pushing it off while the conductor is selling tickets. Then when they get off onto the track where the cable is, the man pulls back on the grip and away you go, about 9 miles an hour. At least the cable is running 9 miles an hour, so you might say that is top speed, but of course they have had a lot of cable cars go 60 or 70 miles an hour when the cable broke. They have had some dandy accidents, but San Franciscans are so sentimental. I think they'll always keep their cable cars. They know a good tourist attraction when they see one, and even though the cable cars have lost money ever since they were installed, they're going to keep them. Chinatown is right along the 49-mile scenic drive. All you have to do is follow these signs and you go right around past all the things you're supposed to see in San Francisco. Beyond Chinatown a few miles, you come out on the Golden Gate, just inside the bridge, a mile or two, and that's the location of Fisherman's Wharf. I like to say these are California shrimp. Of course, they're really the spiny lobster, but they really are shrimp. The lobsters in California don't have claws. They belong to the shrimp family. And right out in front of these restaurants at Fisherman's Wharf, you can see your fish dinner and smell it being cooked, the prawns and the shrimp and the crabs. And out the back windows of all these restaurants, you see the very picturesque little fishing fleet, one of the most picturesque fleets in the world. And they go out after the shrimp and the other fish just outside the Golden Gate. The northwest corner of town is Seal Rocks. And anytime you go out here, you'll see the sea lions. Well, maybe you won't. Sometimes you can't even see the end of your arm out here because the fog is so bad. About half of the time you go here, it'll be foggy, but at least you'll hear the sea lions. And if it is foggy, just go away and come back because the fog comes and goes, and maybe a few hours later it'll look like this. You can see fog banks over there on Mount Tamalpais, the other side of the Golden Gate. These men were fishing right there below the cliff house on Seal Rocks, right on the edge of San Francisco. Just to the south is one of the most beautiful beaches in America, and it's usually the emptiest. Hardly ever will you see anybody in swimming here because it's so cold and windy out on the ocean front of San Francisco. The hottest time of year usually comes in September. In September, they occasionally get a good hot day when it gets up to maybe 90. In that case, you'll see a lot of people out there in the beach, but I have never been in San Francisco when it was hot. It's a hilly city. These are people going and coming up and down the hills of San Francisco. Something's crooked here, but I like a hilly city. I've always wondered what would happen if they had a sleet storm in San Francisco. They never have had. They had a little snow once, just enough to make the streets slick, and I think every car in town ended up in a pile at the foot of the hills. But if you want a real sensation, drive your car in San Francisco. If you can stop for a stop sign or park your car on one of these hilly streets, you're a real driver. I've driven a car in practically every big city in America, but this one tests your ability. And now wait a minute. That was some hill. That had to be a woman driver. Only a woman driver could get a car into that position. Oh, now I'll get letters for that, I'm sure. I shouldn't have said that. I was just kidding. Just north of town is the Golden Gate. It's 1 mile between the two sides of the Golden Gate over the bridge. South of San Francisco, about 100 miles, is the Monterey Peninsula. Carmel Bay is on the south side, Monterey Bay on the north. You're right in the city of Carmel here. Sometime if you want to retire, you should certainly consider Carmel. It has a perfect Mediterranean climate. It's not much colder in winter than it is in summer, about 15 degrees in the average day. South of town, you have these fine estates along the ocean in Carmel Highlands. I think if you have $1 million or maybe more, you could afford to live there. Otherwise, you go to the poor man's Carmel, Point Lobos. This is a state park, so anybody can go out here and see what is sometimes called the most beautiful meeting of land and sea anywhere in the world, just on the edge of Carmel Bay. 17-mile drive is along the north edge, and out at the end of the 17-mile drive, the waves always come in crosswise like that. Halfway out is the famous cypress tree on Midway Point, and off in the distance you can see the fog coming in off the ocean. They have a cold current coming down the coast of California, and that's what makes so much fog in the northern part of the state. But if they didn't have that cold current coming all the way from Japan via Alaska, I don't think you could live in California. It would be too hot. Here's the famous Mission San Carlos at Carmel is sometimes called the prettiest of the 21 California missions. While we're down here along the coast, we'll go up and take a look at the Redwood Highway, 200 or 300 miles north of San Francisco. This is Route 101, and it goes through quite a few of these state parks that were set aside by the Save the Redwoods League. They did so much in the old days through contributions of pennies from school children and millions from a few millionaires to save the world's tallest trees, because the coast redwood can grow up to 364 feet, the tallest one they ever found, and there aren't many of them left. Just a couple of 100,000 acres that have been saved from the lumberman's axe, and they should set aside more of these trees so that they'll always be there. It's a shame to think that a tree that took 2,000 years to grow could be cut down in a few minutes and then sawed up for redwood fences and grape stakes and things like that. No, they should be living on the second growth trees, but the tallest tree still stands about 30 feet taller than any other kind of tree that grows. Next would come either the Douglas fir or the giant sequoia up in the mountains.
Yosemite next, right after this short message. We're on our way to Yosemite. Stan, how far is it to Yosemite from San Francisco?
It's about a 5 or 6 hour drive, depending on what kind of a cowboy driver you are. And it's about a 6 or 7 hour drive from Los Angeles. So Yosemite is really quite easy to get to from almost any place in California.
Is Yosemite a year-round park?
Yes, it's one of the very few year-round national parks that we have. You'll find it very nice in winter, especially for winter sports, but sometimes the weather's very nice too.
Well, since we can go to Yosemite right now, let's do it.
The masterpiece of all valleys anywhere on earth probably would be Yosemite Valley. It's a gem of granite, 8 miles long, about 1 mile wide on the valley bottom, with cliffs going anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 feet above the valley floor. El Capitan is probably the finest cliff anywhere on earth, 3,000 feet straight up, almost smooth enough to roller skate on if you turned it down flat. You can look down at El Capitan, at least there it is across the valley from you. The south rim of the valley is a little bit higher than El Capitan is, and you can pitch rocks from up here and watch them go and go and go. Of course, you shouldn't do that. It's against the law to throw rocks off of these cliffs anyway, because you might hit somebody down below, and there are thousands of people down there. There, I got one. Say, watch it up there, will you? Down in Yosemite Valley, they may have 15 or 20,000 people on a summer weekend. Here's Yosemite Falls, highest in North America. The lower fall is 320 feet, and the upper fall is 1,430 feet. Second highest waterfall in the world. The only one any higher would be Angel Falls, Venezuela. But here in Yosemite Valley, you have a half a dozen fine waterfalls. There's no place like it on earth. Cascade Fall would be one of the first ones you see as you come up the all-year highway. This one road is kept open even in the blizzards of winter, so you can always get into Yosemite Valley. But the nicest time to go would be from the middle of May till the middle of June. That's when the waterfalls are best and when the crowds are smallest. The Royal Arch Cascade is right behind the Ahwahnee Hotel. These pictures of the Ahwahnee Hotel were taken in April, but that's when you have redbud in bloom, and you don't have many people around. Yosemite can become one of the crowdedest national parks you ever saw in your life in summertime, but in spring, everybody is on the job or in school, so very few people here. And really, sometimes it's nicer in spring than any other time. These are apple orchards blooming in early May. Now, I have seen it snow in May here, so it's just like spring anytime. Anything can happen, but it's certainly a wonderful time of year. And yet most people think California only has one season, summertime. Well, I can show you 3 seasons on one day. All you have to do is start down in the low country in summer and come up through spring into winter, into the mountains. That's the rare snow plant. It has no chlorophyll, so the whole plant is red. There's a $250 fine for picking that, so leave it there. This is the campground, one of the half a dozen campgrounds in Yosemite Valley, but in springtime like this, only one of them's open because there's so few people around. Here's a good way to cool soup. Of course, it takes 30 or 40 years practice, and I haven't quite mastered it. I spilled a few drops there, but I'm not quite old enough to practice 30 or 40 years yet, it says here. The trail takes you up to Vernal Fall. This is the Mist Trail. You get soaking wet when you go up here, and you see one of the most perfect waterfalls in the world. Vernal Fall is about 80 feet wide and 317 feet high. That's the main stream of the Merced River. And just above it is Nevada Fall. You can see both of these waterfalls in about a 3 or 4 mile walk. Nevada Fall is 594 feet high. The best time to see the waterfalls would be before the 4th of July, because after that, the water begins to go down, and it probably won't rain all summer long. We wish it would, but it probably won't. So some of these waterfalls can dry up before summer's over, but Vernal and Nevada will always have some water in them. That's Vernal and Nevada right there from Glacier Point, and whoops, we lose more tourists that way. Glacier Point has a fine view of Half Dome in the background, and a fine view of Lower Yosemite Falls and Upper Yosemite Falls. You're 3,214 feet above the valley floor here. You can drive up here in your car. Long ago, some plumber put a lot of railings around here to keep you from falling over, but you always have the fella that likes to take the shortcut down, but take an umbrella along. This is a trick I taught to Mary Poppins some years ago, and she's made quite a thing out of that, this traveling by umbrella, but don't you try it unless I teach you. Now you're down on the valley floor, looking at Mirror Lake. Yosemite has so much variety. In addition to the glaciers, the mountains, the waterfalls, and the cliffs, it has the giant sequoia tree. This is the Mariposa Grove in Yosemite. They have 3 of these groves. They have all the animals that you expect to see in a national park. We like to say that you have more variety in Yosemite National Park than in any area that size on Earth. The lowest elevation's about 2,000 feet. They even have cactus down in the low elevations, but glaciers and mountain tops and lakes in the high elevations. But if you want to see the giant sequoia tree at its best, you go to Sequoia National Park. That's about 100 miles from Yosemite. It's only about a 4-hour drive from Los Angeles to Sequoia National Park. It's about 4 or 5 hours drive from San Francisco. But you have to go up this hill. You start from very low, hot country. In springtime, at the foot of Morro Rock, you'll have buckeye in bloom. You leave the Sequoia River. You're so low down here that they can even grow lemons at the foot of the hill, but you climb some road. That's Morro Rock and the High Sierra off there in the background. But this is the road you drive up. And you're on the sunny side of the mountain, and in summertime, on a hot day, your car may boil over, but you'll eventually get there, although some people find it a good thing to go up at night. But if you go up in the daytime, You come around a bend finally into the cool green forest, and you're so glad to get there when you've come up a road like that. This is the finest forest on the face of the earth. Nobody could ever argue if you want to say that. The giant forest of Sequoia. The elevation right here is 6,500 feet above sea level. And you can park your car and walk out here up these steps onto Morro Rock. They have railings along the stairs and the path that takes you up here in about a 15-minute walk. In the background you see some of the sequoia trees of the giant forest, but it's 3,500 feet down from Morro Rock. So take your umbrella and oh, what a time for an umbrella to stick. Oh boy, well, you don't need it now. You're down. Here's autumn, looking at Mount Shasta, but autumn went right into winter overnight. The 1st of November was one of the nicest days of the whole year. It was one of those 70-degree Indian summer days with the trees turning color around Mount Shasta. The next day, the wind was roaring 60 miles an hour. It had snowed all over the mountain, about a foot deep. That's one of the strongest winds I ever saw. This is the Black Butte Lookout. But there's no ranger here now. He went down yesterday because they've had the big storm and there's no more forest fire danger. Mount Shasta is white like an ice cream cone, and it's going to stay white until next July, because winter is set in here on Mount Shasta, 14,161 feet high. It's a little bit higher than Pikes Peak, about 50 feet. It's the king of Northern California, and it's winter up there, yet it's only November. But you'll find all Californians like winter. Whenever they get a big snowstorm in the mountains, everybody drives up into the mountains to see the snow, and I do it myself, because I like winter for about an hour. And then when I've had enough, I come down out of it. You have quite a bit of autumn color in the mountains of Northern California. And this is Clear Lake in Northern California. It's the biggest lake entirely inside California. It's about 20 miles long. It's about 100 miles north of San Francisco. These pictures are taken in December at Clear Lake with beautiful colors in the weeping willows, and yet it's a perfect summer day in December. I remember it was the 8th of December. I was reading the papers that day about a big blizzard that had hit the whole Midwest of the United States, and I had just left the Midwest. It makes very good reading to read about it in California. I travel around in one of these pickup trucks. It's ideal for camping, and one trouble is that tailgate always falls down, and ouch, 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 hey, where'd he go? It's just as sharp as a guillotine. I must get that thing fixed, but I'll be knocking around in my pickup and camper all the time I can in California in 4 seasons, because here it is winter on Mount Shasta and still autumn down here at Clear Lake. In Northern California, it has everything.
Stan Midgley will be back with us in just a moment. Stan, lots of people show me their travel plans in advance, and I always say, cut them in half. Don't go so fast. How long would it take you to see Northern California?
Well, I've lived in California for 20 years now, and I still look forward to seeing a lot more of the place. Most of the tourists I know that come out to California try to see the whole state on a 2-week vacation, and of course all you do is find out what you should come back and see on the next trip.
You're certainly right, Stan. One of the things I like to spend time with is those cable cars in San Francisco. Everyone likes to turn them around and ride on them. My hometown of Seattle used to have cable cars. Unfortunately, it didn't keep them. Well, thanks, Stan, for a wonderful tour. This is George Pierrot saying goodbye till the next time.